Good morning and welcome to the Maryland Public Service Commission's meeting for June 1st, 2022. Yesterday in the Wall Street Journal, there was a nice article with respect to electric vehicle charging initiatives by state. And it looked like, at least according to the map of the country, Maryland is one of the highest in per capita public chargers, somewhere behind California. But if you have an opportunity to take a look at that Wall Street Journal map, you'll see it looks like we have measles all over the place in Maryland, but it's a good sign that the state continues to be a leader in deployment of chargers with the assistance of our utilities and as well as the private charging community. A few personnel announcements that I'm excited to share today before we get started with the meeting. First of all, employee spotlight on Munzio Tazwell. She is up in our transportation division, where she spent 15 years with us, and she's still up there. But before that, she served in uniform for the Air Force with the Air Force Reserve. Oh, there you are. Okay. Thought you were on YouTube. She rose to the rank of technical sergeant with the 911th Tactical Airlift Group in Pennsylvania. Today, I'm very happy to announce she's going to be recognized by the governor, not only for her service to the state, but her service in uniform for her decades of service. We are so lucky to have you in the transportation division. So, Munzio, congratulations. I look forward to the ceremony later today. Additionally, in transportation, I'm pleased to announce we have the promotion of Mark Gorman. Mark has been serving as the acting director of transportation ever since Chris Cormer left, and he joined us in October of 2017 as the assistant director of safety and enforcement. This position manages the daily activities of the division's field inspections and investigations programs. Oftentimes, we're looked at as sort of a public utility, energy, and gas regulator. While we are that, we also take a look at the undercarriages of taxi cabs, intercity buses, the bay pilots, and lots of things with wheels on them that move. Mark is certified by the state police to perform commercial motor vehicle safety inspections. And prior to joining us, he also served in uniform. He was a police officer with the United States Capitol Police. So I congratulate Mark, who I do not see here. Oh, there he is. Okay. Everybody's in the house today. Congratulations, Mark, on your elevation to director of our transportation division. With that, we have meeting minutes to approve from our last meeting on May 25th. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The meeting minutes are approved. Thank you, Sue Thomas. Good morning, Mr. Secretary.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. There's one item on today's consent agenda. It's an application from iWireless LLC, aka K Wireless LLC, to expand its eligible telecommunications carrier service area.
Thank you. Good morning. Do my colleagues have any questions on this consent item? Seeing none, I would move that we allow a 30-day period for any party that believes that the application should be rejected to file comments with the commission and find that the company's designation as an ETC is in the public interest and grant the company such a designation pursuant to Title 47 of the United States Code, Section 214E as an echo for the service territory specified in its application 10 days later unless adverse comments are received by the commission prior to that deadline. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. Mr. Secretary, the administrative agenda, please.
Mr. Chairman, item number 2 was held over from the May 4, 2022 administrative meeting. It's an application from Amazon.com Services LLC for approval to construct a generation station.
Thank you. This is a recall from our May 4th meeting. We already heard staff's position. Commissioners had intense questioning of the Amazon folks, which we have 4 with us today. Welcome. We do appreciate the very detailed response that you filed, I believe, on May 27th, which at least addressed all of my questions. So I'll start with asking you to make an appearance.
Hi, I'm Kevin Winston. I'm the Director of Worldwide Environmental Field Operations at Amazon. I'm here today with Paul Wilson, who leads my North America environmental team for Last Mile. And I'm here with legal counsel Michael Wagner and my environmental consultant, Julie Ross.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Winston, and for the entire team being here today. I'll turn to my colleagues to see if their questions were answered. I'll start with Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to all the parties. Appreciate the company's filing and the extra information that was provided. I just wanted to confirm that in your filing, you noted that the company was comfortable with either a approval that was either retroactive or one that was concurrent with the current filing time. Is that still accurate?
That is correct.
Thank you. And so has to the question to the technical staff, have you revised your recommendation for the commission?
Peter Wilson on behalf of staff. No, we have not. We still recommend that it be approved retroactive.
Okay, so the filing that you received, I will defer at this point by my colleagues and opportunity to ask any questions if they have any. I, for one, Mr. Chairman, don't think it's appropriate to provide a certain amount of relief to the company when they haven't requested it and been comfortable and clear that they can prefer either option. I would prefer an option that approves it as of the date of the filing.
Thank you, Commissioner. Staff counsel stands on principle, and I agree with that. Mr. Wilson, do you have a response?
Yes, we don't have an objection to that, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Because I was reading, Mr. Winston, your May 27th response there, and Amazon's position is you do not care whether it's effective the date of the filing, the date of the last meeting, or today's date. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I think it does put the commission in the safest position to the extent we grant an approval, grant it effective today, in the event that something could have happened in this interim period since last year when the generators went live to today. The commission bears no liability in granting an approval that is retroactive. So again, thank you for responding to my questions. I'll see if my other colleagues have questions, and then I'll make a motion, and the motion will likely approve of the waiver and approval effective today. Commissioner O'Donnell?
Just a comment. I appreciate the response as well and responsiveness. I suspect, based on my reading of the response and the detailed nature of it, to our previous questioning, that there was quite a lively discussion about what happened. And I'm satisfied that I think Amazon is going to be, in this instance, it was characterized as a miscommunication, but you're going to be watching it closer. I'm certain of that.
Absolutely. We definitely will. This was a mistake. It wasn't part of our normal process. And we have done a deep dive to figure out how this happened and what we're going to do to prevent it from recurring in the future.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Winston, in your response, you did say you were going to provide the commission with an update today with respect to any responses from Washington County officials or City of Hagerstown officials.
To date, we have not had any communications from them, but I'll just defer to make sure from legal counsel. There's been nothing. Right. We have had nothing through today. No communication from them.
Okay, I appreciate that. All right, Commissioner Boomer.
Yes, thank you. I did not attend the May 4th hearing. I was not on that commission as at that time, but I listened to it and read your responses, and I thought they were very thorough. I had some questions, but what you had provided had answered the questions, and what you just said is really gives a better level of confidence that you're on top of these issues. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. With that, I would move that we approve effective today the necessary waivers to permit the construction of the requested generators that the commission finds meets the requirements of the exemption from the CPCN requirement as set forth in section 7-207.1 of the Public Utilities article. The vote begins with Commissioner Boomer.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, item number 3 consists of revisions to Baltimore Gas and Electric Company's comprehensive balancing service price and self-balancing service price for daily metered customers.
Good morning, Mr. Hochstetler.
Holschneider.
Holschneider. Thank you.
No problem. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Alex Holschneider, on behalf of staff. On April 4th, 2022, Baltimore Gas and Electric Company filed to revise their comprehensive balancing service price and self-balancing service price for daily meter customers for service rendered effective June 1st, 2022. BG&E is required to balance all gas volumes that are transported to BG&E's system. BG&E has assessed costs from the interstate pipelines for managing this storage activity. These balancing costs are passed through to BG&E's sales customers through the purchase gas adjustment rate. For daily meter customers, since they transport their own gas volumes to BG&E's system, these customers must compensate BG&E for when their actual gas usage varies from the amount delivered by the supplier. The proposed balancing charge is a mechanism to compensate BG&E for these balancing costs so that this cost is not borne by BG&E's sales customers. BG&E's daily meter customers have two options for balancing services. They can opt into the comprehensive balancing option, which is a flat per therm rate that applies to all volume of gas transported, or they can choose the self-balancing option, which has balancing charges that increase the further the imbalances between the customer's usage and the supplier's delivered gas. BG&E currently has 399 comprehensive balancing customers and 0 self-balancing customers. BG&E is proposing the per therm rate for the comprehensive balancing service increase from $0.0006 per therm to $0.0007 per therm. The company states this increase is driven by increased retainage costs. BG&E is also proposing that the self-balancing imbalance fees increase by approximately 33% for each imbalanced year. Staff recommends the Commission accept the tariff for filing with an effective date of June 1st, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Holschneider. Counsel for Baltimore Gas.
Good morning, Chairman Stanek, Commissioners, Beverly Socorro on behalf of BGE. Nice to meet you, Commissioner Bubar. This is the first time I'm appearing before you. Look forward to working with you. BGE has no additional comments, but we're here if you have any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Socorro. Do my colleagues have questions? Seeing none, I would move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of today, June 1st, 2022. The vote begins with Commissioner Bubar.
Aye. Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard. Aye. I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 4 is a request from PTR Holdco LLC for approval of its landscape and buffer plan pursuant to PPRP condition number 26C in case number 9652.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners, and welcome, Commissioner Bubar.
Thank you.
On April 25th, 2022, PTR Holdco LLC filed a request for the approval of its landscape and buffer plan for its Fairview Farm Solar Project pursuant to PPRP's condition number 26C of the company's approved CPCN. As a requirement of this condition, PTR Holdco is to submit the plan to the Commission for approval. In PTR Holdco's original CPCN filing, the company requested permission to construct a 30-megawatt solar generating facility, which would connect to the PJM system via BGE's 34.5 kV Otter Point circuit in Harford County, Maryland. On July 28, 2021, the Commission issued order number 89890, granting PTR Holdco's CPCN requests, along with the agreed upon licensing conditions proposed by PPRP, including a requirement to develop a landscape and buffer plan for the project site. Pursuant to this condition, number 26A and B, PTR Holdco's plan shall have a minimum distance of 150 feet between any project structure and a property line, and 200 feet between any project structure and the nearest side of an off-site primary dwelling unit. The buffer yard shall abut Shucks Road, be 50 feet wide with a berm of at least 3 to 5 feet in height, and include 6 small trees, 30 shrubs per 100 linear feet of buffer yard, and shall have trees with a minimum of 1-inch caliber for 3-gallon container stock. This plan shall also include species selected from Harford County's plant list and be in substantial conformity to Harford County's proposed design standards and conditions. On May 19, 2022, PPRP filed comments with the Commission in support of approving PTR Holdco's plan.
And after its review of PTR Holdco's filing, staff has concluded that the company's landscape and buffer plan meets these requirements outlined in condition number 26, and therefore, staff recommends the commission approve the company's landscape plan. On behalf of PTR Holdco, we have Mr. Bugelmans and other members of the company here to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Do we have a representative from the Department of Natural Resources with us today? No, but we recognize they filed a pleading with us stating that they don't object.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm representing PPRP.
Oh, okay. Good morning. If you could appear.
I'm, an unusual appearance here. I'm Michelle Honig, appearing on behalf of PPRP, and Jenny Rogers is here, also from PPRP. And PPRP does not object to the landscape and buffer plan that was submitted.
Thank you. Counsel for the company.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Max Cook on behalf of PTR Holdco LLC. I'm also joined by Mr. Barry Skolci, the Chief Development Officer of ProTech Energy Solutions, the developer of the project. We have reviewed staff's filings and have nothing to add. And with that, we're here to answer any questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Do commissioners have questions? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you. I noticed in the plug sheet, it refers to the company submitting a list of small trees and large trees as shrubs. Is there a requirement, and maybe someone else can answer this, if anybody who can add light is fine. Is there a requirement for a certain number of small trees and a certain number of large trees besides the shrubbery?
Mr. Skolci can answer this, Your Honor.
Yeah. Good morning. My name is Barry Skolci, and I'm both a member of PTR Holdco and, as was said, ProTech Energy Solutions, were the developer of the project. There is a specific requirement outlined in the Harford County Ordinance and their code. It provides, in this case, this is a buffer yard E, and there's a specific list or litany of both small trees and large trees that you can use from that list, and that's what we utilized.
Let me see. Maybe PPRP can answer this question. Was Hartford County a litigant, or did they engage in the CPCM process at all originally?
Hi, this is Jenny Rogers with PPRP. They were not a litigant in the CPCN process, but we did develop that condition in conjunction with requirements from the county.
Is it fair to say that Hartford County government is satisfied with this?
Mr. Skolky can probably answer that better than I can. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, we've been working closely with Hartford County since the CPCN approval was issued. And we've submitted the plan that you have in front of you has been submitted to them. We've met with them numerous times, so that they're an active participant in this process. And both the setbacks, the extent of the buffer area, the width, and the trees that were utilized were all based on their recommendations.
Have they expressed any concerns to you whatsoever?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Bubar.
Thank you. I had maybe a follow-on question to Commissioner O'Donnell's. So with Hartford County, it looked as if the approval of the plan, of the landscape plan, is part of a broader approval process. So can you just elaborate on that, on how we expect Hartford County to approve it?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. In terms of the approval, it's part of the larger site plan approval process. As Mr. Skolci noted, they've been in contact with the county throughout this process. The landscape plan did not receive any comments, and we do not anticipate any comments on that plan specifically.
Thank you. And maybe can somebody elaborate? I know Hartford County has these requirements, but I didn't read into them. Are there any requirements for native plants, native trees? And do you anticipate any issues with getting any of those, particularly the trees?
Again, the species that are listed are noted in their ordinance. So they are native, and we've already started to source out vendors who can supply those. What we'll typically do is we bring a landscape architect on board who will drive that process for us and monitor and make sure that everything is planted properly. So that is in the works as we speak.
Okay. Are there any maintenance requirements that the county has?
Other than replacing trees that don't make it. which, typically a small percentage that does happen.
All right, thank you.
Seeing no additional questions, I would move that we approve the company's request for approval of its landscape and buffer plan. The vote begins with Commissioner Bubar,
Aye.
Commissioner Linton,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Aye.
and Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, item number 5 consists of revised tariff pages from Washington Gas Light Company, updating its recalculation of discount rates for the purchase of supplier receivables.
Morning, Mr. Baker.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Ben Baker on behalf of staff. Washington Gas has proposed to update its purchase of receivable rates that will be assessed to suppliers in the company's utility consolidated billing program. While reviewing the proposed rates, staff determined there were discrepancies between the company's tariff for setting POR rates and the procedures that have been utilized previously to set the POR rates. The company and staff worked together to align the tariff and the procedures. Staff also requested feedback from OPC regarding the proposed changes, which staff proposes to incorporate with some modifications. The proposed changes include update to the IT cost language to be more generic, update the components included within the reconciliation factor to be inclusive of all costs, inclusive of bad debt expense, net of late fees, providing more detailed schedule of data updates included within WGL's proposed POR rates, and requires that negative balances that result in 0% discount rates be carried forward. These changes are described on pages 17 to 20 of staff's comments, and a complete red line of the tariff is provided in Appendix C. Additionally, staff proposes 2 slight modifications to WGL's POR rate, which impact the IT and incremental collection cost. These modifications result in a proposed discount rate of 1.0989% for residential and 0% for non-residential. In the instant filing, the company is not proposing to follow all aspects of its tariff, as the period these costs represent is longer than a year. Staff is supportive of this proposal for the instant filing. Staff was aware of 2 concerns regarding the POR rate when staff submitted its comments. First, there was no agreement that a negative POR balances should be carried forward in the reconciliation component into future POR periods as offsets to future costs, due to the negative balances being predominantly driven by late fees. All other utilities except Washington Gas currently carry negative POR balances forward, and previous attempts to remove the late fees from the POR discount rate have been denied. Additionally, previous attempts to address negative discount rates have also been unsuccessful. There are also possible benefits from carrying forward negative balances, such as a buffer to market-driven defaults or paying for future market enhancements. Staff believes that for the immediate future, that Washington Gas should align with the other utilities, and that the established policy of carrying forward negative balance discount rates should not be revisited without the entire industry present. Otherwise, staff believes the bad debt net of late fees should continue to be excluded from the reconciliation vector. The other issue brought to staff's attention was a discrepancy in IT costs and revenues used to set previous POR rates, such that Washington Gas has an unrecovered balance of $800,000 in IT costs. It is staff's understanding that an adjustment was made for approximately $3.3 million in IT costs related to suppliers in a 2013 base rate case. But Washington Gas, until the instant filing, has only reported approximately $2.6 million when setting POR rates. Additionally, the company also updated the instant filing the amount of revenue it claims to have collected from suppliers in previous POR periods, which would decrease the revenues collected related to IT costs from $2.6 million to $2.3 million. At this time, staff is not supportive of permitting Washington Gas to update for this recently identified IT cost and revenue mismatch, as staff views this as retroactive rate making, especially considering the breadth of time that the underreported amounts spanned. To the extent the commission may support the recovery of this $800,000 discrepancy, then staff would recommend the company be permitted to make a separate filing for consideration of those costs. For these reasons, staff recommends the commission accept the filing Washington Gas's revised tariff, subject to the modifications proposed by staff with an effective date of May 1st, 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. We'll now hear from Office of People's Counsel.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Jacob Auslander on behalf of the Maryland Office of People's Counsel. This is my first time back since the pandemic began, so it's good to see all of you. OPC filed some brief comments yesterday, and we are in agreement with staff, and we believe that the recommendations that staff made in its bug sheet should be implemented. There was one slight discrepancy between what we included in our comments and what staff has presented to the commission today. And that just has to do with the including in the tariff some specific language regarding that the effective POR discount rate period would run for a specific amount of time. And as staff had pointed out in their bug sheet, and as we mentioned in our comments, what we believe the commission should do is to take the approach that they've approved for BG&E and to make sure that WGL's tariff provisions are more or less identical to what BG&E currently does.
Thank you, Mr. Auslander. Welcome back. You mentioned a filing filed yesterday. Did you mean May 27th?
It might have been May 27th. I'm covering for it. So
I see that standing in is never a good place to be.
right.
Thank you, Mr. Auslander. We'll turn to the utility.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. John Dodge appearing on behalf of Washington Gas. Let me echo everybody's welcome to new Commissioner Bobar. We look forward to appearing before you and working with you.
Thank you.
I'd like to start by thanking staff and OPC for not only their very well considered comments in this matter, but the collaborative discussions that we had leading to today's meeting. These are complicated issues. I'm fond of saying I can spell POR, but beyond that, it's a little sketchy for me. We support the staff's calculation of our current discount rate. We do have a couple of other comments, and I won't belabor them. Mr. Baker, who I may put on the spot for the aforementioned technical understandings, we are not presenting the $810,000 or so for recovery in the POR rate this time around. So the company's position that it is premature for the commission to rule on a retroactive rate making claim, for example. We do appreciate the staff's position that and would agree to make a separate standalone filing to the extent that we seek recovery of that $800,000 or $810,000, and all of the commission's powers would come into play then. Reasonable, prudent, retroactive rate making, everything would be on the table as far as the company is concerned, should we care to make that standalone filing. So the company would recommend against the commission reaching that issue today. I'd like to speak a little bit about the negative balance proposal that staff has put forward, and I'd like to give a little historical context. The POR discount rate, as I understand it, is to mimic competition. That it is set so that the company recovers what it would have recovered had there been no customer choice program. So if there's a 2% discount rate derived, that essentially implies we would have collected around 98% of our billings from our residential and other customers. The mathematical issue rises when something like late fees drives up the discount rate to 100 or more than 100% into negative discount rate territory. In that circumstance, the commission for decades has set the discount rate at 0. The company does not collect anything over 100% from the suppliers. That raises in turn two problems for the company. Number one, if there are future costs to be offset, as Mr. Baker alluded, we don't have a pot of money that we can go to and say, oh, we've been tracking and we are willing to track the negative discount rate going forward. We don't have a liability account set up to go in and say, okay, we owe $100, we're going to go into that bucket of money, because we weren't allowed to collect that money from the suppliers. It's just a tracking mechanism. Second, as I understand GAAP rules, very limitedly, I will admit, we cannot set up a liability on our books because we did not collect any money from the suppliers. So I'm not sure today, standing here, what the solution is, but I would prefer to keep discussions going with staff and OPC on this very complex issue to understand what other utilities might do in their circumstances. But I just want to reiterate, we don't have the money in a bank account that we can turn to offset future costs that arise. So with that, I'll stop and answer any questions to my limited ability and welcome your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. So you're saying that Mr. Baker's advocating a sort of carryover of anything above 100%, but you're saying there's no actual dollars to carry over?
That's correct. We're willing to track whatever the calculation is. In my very simple example, if it's 102%, we would track that $2 for however many years there was a negative discount rate. But there's no physical money associated with that tracking because the commission has said you can't collect that money. Your discount rate is zero in that circumstance.
Mr. Baker, that does seem to be a predicament if the $2 really doesn't exist in an account anywhere, yet BGE and some other utilities apparently do the carry forward.
Yeah, I would need to look at how it's treated from an accounting perspective, so I don't know that, but in terms of carry forward, every other utility in our state does it. So it must be done, but I don't know what the appropriate treatment is, whether it's in a liability or it's in a rate making adjustment. So I would have to look into how that's done.
It does sound like there is some type of a fiction that allows the numbers to be at least tracked at a minimum. I agree with you, Mr. Dodge. POR makes my eyes bleed. I'll turn to my colleagues for questions. Commissioner O'Donnell.
All right, I'm going to ask Mr. Baker or staff counsel a question, and Mr. Auslander, I'd like you to listen to the question because I'm going to ask you a different version of the very same question. So you're seeming to suggest that we authorize the company to operate outside of the tariff covenant consciously. That troubles me, and I was speaking to the chairman beforehand. How do we approve that? And to me, a tariff is a covenant. You don't just violate a tariff. How do we explain that recommendation?
Yeah, so from a, I'll ask Annette or Ms. Garofalo to discuss the legal implications of it. From the technical perspective, I was willing to go there for mostly for two reasons. One, when I was looking there, the two parts that were effectively violating are one, the 5 years average of basically the bill, how we come up with billing determinants. That's supposed to be done on a 5-year average basis. And it was, and when I looked at the data, I said, okay, well, that is less. The 5-year average doesn't make as much sense in this instance because the billing determinants have appeared to decrease based on the number of customers. And so that was one aspect that, and I gave a chart on the last page of our filing that you'd like to see that picture. The other reason from a technical perspective, give me 1 second. Okay. And the other reason was just the amount of time that we're under consideration here. So because of the mismatch in periods that has been happening and will occur again for this period, we're looking, this rate will be in effect for a year, but the cost, the next time they show up, the Washington Gas shows up next spring, we'll be looking at costs from basically July of 2021 until December of 2022. And so, and the discount rate that's in effect right now is 0.2%, and we're looking at a 1.1% POR rate. And so basically I'm anticipating a large, I'm assuming that we might end up in an under collection scenario that require a larger discount rate to make up that imbalance. And so so if we did anything to lower the rate, I was saying, okay, well, this will, result in a lower rate. I do provide you with the actual tariff POR value if that's where you'd like to go.
No, it's not where I'm going. So your technical analysis, I have no quibble with.
Okay.
I have no argument against that. It's this concept that we're approving. I mean, I understand sometimes utilities run afoul of their tariffs, You're asking us to consciously approve authorization to run afoul of the tariff. And Mr. Auslander is going to have a very tough question with regard to setting that precedent and allowing utilities to do so to residential ratepayers. So maybe it's not the technical justification, it's the legal justification. How does this commission pre-authorize violation of a tariff, an approved tariff? It's approved.
I also am a stand-in today, so, but I would say if we are asking that the tariff be effective May 1, which is not quite, say May 1? I don't think it's May 2, but it's, we are not asking you to go back.
No, my understanding of the recommendation is we're saying to the company, you're not going to be operating for the next year or so in accordance with your tariff. That's what she says. I don't know how we do that.
Let me suggest something. Ms. Garofalo, I know you're standing in, Mr. Auslander's standing in. There appears to be some unresolved questions, notably the carry forward question, the legal question that Commissioner O'Donnell just raised. Would the parties like a 2-week continuance? And we're ready behind the effective date, so that one issue is sort of live. Would the parties like 2 weeks to continue discussions? Mr. Dodge, you illuminated sort of that question of $810,000. I didn't know where WGO was until you stated that you're completely fine with carving this out. I thought the utility was opposed. So there seems to be a lot of items that have yet to be settled. So let me ask that question. Would 2 weeks be helpful?
A minimum of 2 weeks would be very helpful, Your Honor. I would only add that if the commission has other questions today, that we hear about them so that we could fold them into any discussions we had.
Okay, well, we'll get back to the commissioners in the question, and that's a very good question that Commissioner O'Donnell raised that needs some research. Mr. Auslander.
I don't think OPC would object to, an extension of time.
Will Mr. Sammartino be here in 2 weeks, or?
I believe so.
Okay, and then you're off the hook.
But Mr. Auslander, I really didn't ask you.
I know, and I thought I might just adopt it, but
you can think about your answer to the next time,
okay.
for the second way. But if you need, OPC needs to justify how this commission pre-approves violating a tariff requirement.
Well, we certainly, believe that the tariff is a sacrosanct document and it needs to be followed. I would say that, as with many things, when layers are added onto the regulatory compact, such as this retail choice program in Maryland, some complications arise, and so sometimes there is a tension between the competing policies behind very important initiatives that are outside of that contract. And I do think, off the top of my head, that maybe the best way is to revise the tariff so that the tariff is not being violated.
So thank you for that. Make sure you pass that on to the person you're standing in for. The question is still alive in my mind, and the precedential nature of doing such a thing as recommended by staff scares me, because we could pre-authorize utilities to violate the tariffs for residential rates. Many other programs. That's a scary concept. I'm surprised nobody has questioned this at all. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Additional questions? We are going to schedule this for a future date, but as Mr. Dodge said, let's get our questions out there. Commissioner Richard.
Yeah, I would also just like to ask while you're meeting, just to, first of all, with OPC's recommendation language, as far as making this a little more, uniform with BGE, if the staff and OPC could get together on that, because it looked like there was an accommodation made up to the point of your most recent filing. But I would I would find that useful. Also, I was just a little confused by the accounting for the difference between late fees and bad debt, because that has been something, in fact, this commission, we've used that difference to help pay for some of the supplier improvement programs. So again, I was a little confused by your answer that there is no accounting for it, when in fact, I think there is in the case of the other utilities. So I'd be interested in 2 weeks hearing a little more about that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to echo Commissioner Richards' question. That was going to be mine, actually. So, yeah, I'll take one for it.
All right, so I'll highlight that question twice, times two.
So, Mr. Chairman, since staff usually has to have anything in a week in advance, we'd ask for 3 weeks.
Thank you, Ms. Garofalo. We're going to give you more time than that. I'll schedule this for Wednesday, July 6th. The commission has a number of conflicts on its calendar. So, Mr. Dodge, you get 5 weeks. But with 5 weeks, I do expect that the parties can resolve these issues. Perhaps, Mr. Dodge, you could speak to Ms. Sikora. No, she's no longer here. Oh, she's there. See how the other utilities carry forward the imaginary $2. And hopefully we could have some type of settlement between OPC staff and the utility. So, well, Mr. Secretary, we'll put this on the docket for Wednesday, July 6th. Yes, Mr. Chairman. Seeing nothing else on today's agenda, I would like to recognize Joe Cleaver in the back of the room there. Joe has been the Deputy People's Counsel for at least 10 years, for about 10 years. He's practiced before this commission since before any of us have started here, and has always represented Office of People's Counsel in the most professional way. He was a zealous advocate for his client, and I'm happy to announce that he's going to work in the office where I last served in federal service, at FERC's Office of Enforcement Division of Investigations, where you will be pursuing some of the most underhanded and complex market manipulators who attempt to do harm to our nation's electric and gas and water markets. So, Mr. Cleaver, congratulations, and we wish you well.
Mr. Chairman, can I tell an anecdote about Mr. Cleaver?
Of course, Commissioner Nelson.
When I was in the legislature for 21 and a half years before I came to this commission, and there was a big law firm, a big lobbying interest down there, and it was Alexander and Cleaver. And it was Joseph Alexander, or Gary Alexander and Joseph Cleaver, same names. So I get to the commission, and I'm like, oh my God, that law firm has their hands in everything. So anyway, best of luck, Joe. We appreciate working with you. It's been a pleasure, truly. Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Richard.
I just want to also add my thanks for your service to the people of Maryland. I've been always so impressed by how prepared you've been, how persuasive you are, and what a great job you do on behalf of the people of Maryland. And very glad to hear that you're going to be continuing to serve now the people of the whole country. And I'm sure we'll all be very grateful for your service. Thank you.
So I echo those comments. Worked with you for many years in different positions myself, and hopefully I'll never see you in your new position, but I'm hopeful that you'll do exceedingly well there, not just for yourself, but also for the citizens of the country. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'd like to say, I'm sorry that I didn't get to work with you. I missed you last week, and I've heard so many great things about you. So I wish you luck in the federal government. It's a great place to work after having done it myself for 38 years. So thank you for your service, and we wish you luck.
Best of luck. This meeting is now adjourned.